What if one mistake could cost you thousands on your flood insurance? What if you didn't know to ask a question and you were out of pocket thousands of dollars? Look, I have an educational background in flood mitigation, and even I made these same mistakes when I bought a home in a flood zone. And in today's video, I'm going to show you the 5 mistakes I made and that you're probably making on your flood insurance too that's costing you thousands of dollars. So let's get started. Before we do, I need you to hit share, subscribe, and like the channel below. Hi, I'm Chris with the Flood Insurance Guru, and for more than a decade, I've been providing homeowners with flood education after buying a house in a flood zone and almost losing my house because of high premiums, being in the wrong flood zone. Today we're talking about 5 mistakes that most homeowners make when getting flood insurance. The same mistakes I made, even though I had an educational background in flood mitigation. So let's talk about these mistakes today. The first mistake is only taking the building coverage that your bank requires. You know, we talk to hundreds of people every month. And one of the first things they say is, hey, I don't know why I'm in a flood zone. I just need what my bank's requiring. Here's the problem with that. You're not getting the proper replacement costs on your property. So if your property does flood, and we've seen this happen, you're only getting that loan amount. So in many situations, you don't either have enough money to rebuild your house. So let's just say that your house did have a total loss. You could be out hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, when this happened to me, I only took out the $250,000 that my bank was required. The problem was my house's replacement cost was $380,000. So had a total loss occurred, I could have been out $130,000. How would have I made that up? Well, like many homeowners, I probably would have had to go and get an SBA disaster loan, be paying on a disaster loan on a house I didn't even have. So you want to make sure that you're getting replacement costs, not just what your bank's requiring. It's also, the replacement cost is used as a rate driver. So the insurance companies, whether it's the federal flood insurance program or the national flood insurance program, they're using this as a huge rate driver anyway. So you might see $250,000 on this house, and you might see it on another house. But if the replacement cost is different, that could be a big difference in the rate. Now let's talk about mistake number 2, and that comes to contents coverage. You know, a lot of people we talk to say, hey, I don't need contents coverage on my flood insurance policy because I have it on my home insurance policy. Remember, these are 2 separate disasters that could happen. Typically, flood is not covered by a standard home insurance policy. This means you still need probably the same amount of contents coverage that you have on your home insurance policy. In fact, whatever you're insuring your property for, you probably want to take out about 50% of that contents coverage. So the National Flood Insurance Program maxes out at $100,000, and that's the most you can get through that. With private though, you can get a lot more. But let's just say you're insuring your home for $200,000, then you probably want to start at $100,000 in personal property coverage if this is your primary residence. Look, if it's an investment property or rental property, you probably do need less because you don't have as much in there. But that's mistake number 2 that most people make. Mistake number 3 comes down to the deductible. You see, we talk to hundreds of people every month, and they're, I want the highest deductible possible because it's been beat into their brain that it's going to save them significantly. However, on flood insurance, the savings is typically minimum. In fact, the National Flood Insurance Program, you save 2.5% going from a $1,000 deductible to a $5,000 deductible. Now in private, you might be able to save a couple $100 if your premium is over $1,500 or $2,000. But you're not really saving that much compared to what it could cost you. Because remember, flood works a little different. You've got a building deductible, you've got a contents deductible. If you have a private policy with additional living expense, you could have a 3rd deductible. So you want a manageable deductible. And this is why we always tell people, go with that $1,000 deductible if possible. Now, mistake number 4 that most people make is not shopping their flood insurance. Someone says, hey, here's a private flood insurance quote. Here's the National Flood Insurance Program. They just take it as that. Remember, all these different private companies have different rating models. That means that private policy A, maybe $4,000 a year. Private policy B, maybe $400 a year. You want to get at least 3 different private flood insurance policies when looking at this. This will give you an idea too of what's going to happen to rates in the future. So if you see 3 quotes at $4,000, you have one at $400, you've got a pretty good idea that $400 one's probably going to be going up year after year. Now, mistake number 5 that I made and I see so many other people make is not using an elevation certificate. Look, in today's world, typically elevation certificates are no longer required, but they can still be extremely valuable in helping you with your rate because it can show that your elevation is much higher than that base flood elevation, which is a level of what flooding comes to or could come to. The higher you are above that though, the lower your premiums could be. And it's an elevation certificate that could help you here. It could also help you change your flood zone where flood insurance is not required. It's exactly what I did more than a decade ago, and I've helped more than 1,000 people change their flood zone since. So, those are the 5 mistakes that we see people make when getting flood insurance quotes. Whether it's the first time or they've been getting flood insurance quotes every year for a property. It's the same mistakes that I made more than a decade ago. So if you're ready to take the next steps of getting that flood insurance quote, it's 3 simple steps. Step 1, fill the form out on our website. Step 2, connect with myself or one of our flood risk advisors. And step 3, finalize your policy. It's that it. And in the description of this video, you can also download our guide to flood insurance. I'm Chris with the Flood Insurance Guru, and I look forward to speaking to you in our next video. Remember, everybody's in a flood zone. It's just a matter of how quick water gets to you. Thank you.